That presentation, very informative. Once again, if you have any questions for Arjun, you can ask that on our Telegram channel or on our Twitter channel. And of course, once again, there's a $300 prize for the top 10 questions. We'll be asking those questions at the end of the presentation. We have one more to go. Without any further ado, I want to introduce Vijay Garg. He's the CEO of Maple Block Capital. Maple Block Capital is a venture capital firm, and they are trying to bridge traditional finance with the blockchain and with DeFi. So he has a little bit of a different perspective coming from venture capitalists who invest in projects as opposed to being part of an ecosystem and a protocol. So Vijay, if you are there.
Yeah, hi, thanks Kevin for the introduction. Can you allow for me to share the screen?
So you will be able to share on your screen, and then just press the share screen and your presentation will come up.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not able to share the screen. Is there an issue?
Let's see. So the bottom section where it says share screen. Wait, does somebody Arjun, were you able to stop sharing? Okay, we see your screen. We see white screen so far.
Yeah, I'm able to, yeah, okay. Now again, okay.
Okay.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you, Kevin, for the introduction. Hello, guys. It's a pleasure to meet everyone. This is Vijay from Maple Block Capital. And thanks, Zen, for having me in this panel. So let me share with you guys my thoughts and know-how on how DeFi is growing with real-world adoption. So we are going to cover three aspects within this topic. Those would be transformation of a business financial system, bridging liquidity, and bridging users. So before we jump into these topics, let's talk about what is decentralized finance, right? So we all talk about DeFi, NFT, and few other technical terms, but many of us, I guess, we do not really understand what these terms are in reality. So what is decentralized finance? Before understanding decentralized finance, let's break that into two pieces. First is finance, and second is decentralized. What is finance? Finance means management or exchange of money. So in simple terms, activities that are associated with investing, purchasing, renting, or leveraging, or borrowing, lending, etc. That is finance. And what is decentralized? Decentralized is a system which is not controlled by a single person or a single entity. Instead, it is controlled by a group of people. Example, I create a password of 1,000 letters, and each letter I give to 1,000 different people. So I won't be unlock a system unless and until I get those 1,000 letters from 1,000 different people. So this is called a decentralization. And what is decentralized finance means? Management or exchange of money in a system which is more open, transparent, governed, and not controlled by a single person or entity like banks, exchanges, insurance companies, etc. So let's quickly jump into our first topic, transformation of business financial system. So DeFi will change how the centralized financial operators like banks run their operations currently, and even has a potential to shift the structure of entire financial ecosystem at a macroeconomic level, which will definitely impact bottom line to SMEs, small and medium enterprises, in the long run, and how they take loans, or how they accept credits, or how they do the remittances or the settlements. Since 2020, we all know billions of dollars have already been put into DeFi ecosystem, and this growth was mainly led by certain protocols or applications like Ethereum, primarily, I would say. There are others, definitely. So no hard feelings again. Let's understand this deeper through real world examples, okay? First example would be like commercial banks. So in case of commercial banks, their primary business model is to accept deposits and give credits. And between these two functions, these banks earn profits through arbitrage, or I would say through leverage, by providing deeper liquidity into the market, traditional market. Whereas DeFi protocols enable people to borrow or lend money without any intermediary between unknown participants, and this can be done at any time from any location and with any amount. Interest rates are always transparent and set based on demand and supply. If there is more demand, it would be higher. If there is more supply, interest rates would be lower. Examples for such kind of protocols we already know in the blockchain exist, like Compound and Aave. Compound is more towards our collateralization of the assets, and Aave is more towards the is trying more towards the non-collateralization of the loans, like banks and financial systems. Second example is investment banks and issuer of financial statements. So current financial system is very complicated, wherein investment banks do a very detailed KYC on the investors, mainly institutional investors. We are talking about traditional finance, right? So definitely institutional investors play a very big role in it. And after a long wait, like suppose 1 week to couple of months, an account is open, there a specific private banker is appointed to deal with a set of clients. Main role of this banker is to give advice and create a pool of assets like commodities, forex trading, stocks, ETFs, bonds, etc. This current system is very complex from the start of opening an account to purchasing specific products, and sometimes the fees, commission, or charges the banks or bankers are also not even transparent. On the other hand, DeFi makes these transactions easy by offering tokenization of these products, derivatives of them. Example, Synthetix. So Synthetix, it is a derivative protocol which allows trading of derivatives on assets such as stocks, currencies, or commodities.
So, sorry to interrupt you. Are you? Do you mean to change slides, or are you still on the table of contents slide?
No, I'm still on the first one. I'm still on. I don't.
Okay.
Yeah. So Synthetix, like it's a derivative protocol which allows trading of derivatives on assets such as stock, currency, and commodities. Yun Finance is also another example that searches for the best yield products for investors within DeFi space and invest automatically for its users. The third example would be exchanges. So main function of an exchange is to organize trading of different assets, such as stocks, foreign currencies, between two or more people, right? And when it comes to traditional world or traditional finance, it can be referred to NASDAQ. And when it comes to crypto world, it can be referred to centralized exchange like Binance, Huobi, or OKX, right? And as we are witnessing, more and more decentralized exchanges are coming up. Volume is being shifted from centralized exchanges to decentralized exchanges. These decentralized exchanges allows user to swap or trade their assets with complete control of their private keys and at a price determined by the real supply and demand, and which cannot be modified or edited because it is decentralized, right? The fourth example of this would be insurance. Insurance is available in traditional world to mitigate the risk of fire theft. Although within DeFi or blockchain ecosystem, we only see Nexus Mutual kind of players who only covers the smart contract code risk, nothing else, right? So it is yet to grow. So there is a lot of possibilities for the integration from the traditional world into the real world, I would say, into the DeFi space. Fifth example would be central banks. Central banks issue the currencies that are controlled by them, and their currencies also possess very high risk of great volatility in case of economic crisis. Whereas within DeFi or crypto space, we have stable coins that are backed by a reserve currency, like one USDT is backed by one USD. Having said that, arguably, right? And they inherently encode the price stability as well. Now let's understand where do we stand as of today. So I would explain that in three ways. First would be value transfer. So our total value logged in DeFi, stable coins, loans, credits are touching all-time high every single day we pass, right? And this means more and more fiat is flowing from traditional world to DeFi, no doubt about it. Although currently money first comes from bank account to centralized exchanges, they convert into crypto coins, and then transaction within DeFi takes place and gets stored into multiple wallets as per the user requirements. Second would be connecting different savers and the borrowers. In traditional financial ecosystem, borrower cannot contact lender directly without intermediary like bank, or more precisely, I would say lender cannot find the trustworthy borrower without intermediaries like banks. Development of stable coins and decentralized exchanges have already made this available for both our borrower and lender to directly deal with each other. Borrower can take money from lender directly, lender can lend the money directly to the borrower. Third would be competing for traditional finance funds. We have seen big companies, including listing companies, tech giants in 2020 and 2021, who have shifted their vision partially from traditional funds to finance to DeFi applications. It is not yet happened at mainstream level, but yes, advancement of DeFi is revolutionary and would take place. So this is where we are standing right now in terms of DeFi adoption in the real world, right? Now, third point is DeFi has a potential to outperform traditional finance. How we can say that? Through by seeing three points. One would be speed of growth. Jan 20, $700 million were logged in DeFi. As of today, billions of dollars. Room for growth, as per Messari, DeFi application are just 1.5% of total value logged in crypto market, and total household debt amounts to $48 billion. If DeFi just cover 0.1% of that debt, it means DeFi's current TVL will grow by 500%. Third would be new market sentiments. According to World Bank, 1.7 billion adults do not have access to banking services. DeFi is permissionless. Anyone can access these financial services. What they need: electricity, internet connection, and smartphones. That's it. They don't need any KYC. They don't need any documents. They don't need to meet a banker. They just need these three things. Now let's understand the role of DeFi in small and medium enterprises. Small and medium enterprises, what they do? I mean, what is their basic or daily routine? Remittances or loans, right? Current banking industry is very complex. We know a lot of KYC, documentation, meet in person, expensive. Banking transactions are expensive, cross-border definitely, and inflexible. But when it comes to the DeFi, all these problems get solved. Even if we see Tesla's purchase $1.5 billion in Bitcoin, although it was motivated by financial value of Bitcoin as an asset, not by transaction banking needs, but still it some way drives the value towards DeFi in the longer run. That if someone has invested in Bitcoin as a financial value, they will definitely jump into the DeFi in the bigger area, right? Our next concept is bridging liquidity. So within bridging liquidity, we want to cover our first topic, asset tokenization, which is very, very important. Asset tokenization, what is asset tokenization? We all are hearing about big giants like even FTX or few bigger companies doing the assets tokenization, right? But nobody really understands what it is. So it's a process where issuer creates a digital token on a distributed ledger technology or on a blockchain, which either represents the digital asset or physical asset. As simple as that. Suppose I have a real estate in Dubai. Okay, I can issue the token against that real estate, and that token becomes my asset tokenization. That process is called as asset tokenization. So blockchain guarantees that once you buy tokens representing an asset, no single authority can erase or change your ownership. Let's see an example. Let's take an example. Suppose you have a property of $500,000 in New York, right? And asset tokenization could convert ownership of this property into 500,000 tokens. Now you want to take a loan of $50,000. It doesn't make sense, right, for you to lend or mortgage this $500,000 worth of property just to take $50,000 loan. But in traditional world, you can't do that. You have to either lend this entire property or not take loan at all against this property. But what you can do through asset tokenization is you can create 500,000 tokens and transfer percentage of those tokens to the buyer, and this way percentage of rights in the property will be transferred to the buyer as well, and nobody can challenge that. Seller cannot challenge that, buyer cannot challenge that, and no one can erase the ownership of the investor who has bought the tokens, or in this matter share of a property as well, right? Now what kind of tokenized assets are there? One is interchangeable, like you buy BTC from anywhere in the world, it doesn't matter, per BTC value will never change. Divisible, you can buy 0.0001 BTC, that is allowable. It also depends upon when you issue a token, you want to do the fraction or not. Non-interchangeable are generally NFTs, which can't be replaced because they can't be replaced with tokens of same type because each token represents a unique value. Although, I mean, some NFTs you can do like commercial real estate related NFTs or very expensive fine art NFTs, right? Now, what can be tokenized? You can tokenize anything, real estate, stocks, bonds, commodities to exotic assets like sports team, racehorses, artwork, celebrities, whatever comes in your mind that has a value in the real world, you can tokenize in within crypto. And how it will benefit you. Let's talk about the benefit of tokenization, right? It will provide the greater liquidity. Like suppose you think you have a real estate or you have a very expensive fine art, right? It's very difficult to sell or move. It will remain in your balance sheet for a very long period of time. Access to broader base of traders within DeFi ecosystem where there are millions of users, it increases liquidity with more freedom and gets you sell your asset as soon as possible as well. Also, second benefit would be it is much faster, it is cheaper because all the tokenization of the assets are done through smart contracts. So when you transfer, it is highly efficient and cheaper as well. Very transparent, completely secured, recorded in blockchain, can't be amended. Other benefits, fair price determined by the market, reduce management costs, etc., etc. Let's take an example. Centrifuge is a very good example, I would say. So sorry to take their name specifically, but they've created a decentralized asset tokenization platform, which is specifically for the traditional asset royalties. So Centrifuge, I would say, is specifically made for reducing the cost of the capital for SMEs, smart and medium-sized enterprises, and provide DeFi investors with a stable source of yield uncorrelated from volatile crypto assets, basically. So having said that, from art to building, you can tokenize anything and fundamentally change how the current financial industry is being operated. But this has a lot of challenges, regulatory hurdles, compliances. DeFi is still growing. Infrastructure is not built yet, right? It's not robust enough to support the bigger markets, or determining the collateral value of the assets is very challenging. So these are the challenges that we are still facing within the asset tokenization. Now let's go into the, okay, this is about the ownership I've already spoken about. Now let's go into the institutional DeFi. So when we say institutional, immediately comes in our mind, oh, Tesla invested $1.5 billion in Bitcoin, or Michael Saylor is buying a lot of Bitcoins, more than 100,000, owns more than 100,000, or this guy is saying that, that guy is saying. Institutional means how the money is flowing from outside world into DeFi, not only in Bitcoin. So according to Fidelity Asset Management Report, 80% of companies considered investing in digital assets, not in Bitcoin only. And 36% of them have already invested in Bitcoin. There are two specific reasons why people want to come into digital assets as of now. Yeah, one is low transaction fees, definitely, and second is low cost. But this will change with the time, as and when we grow, and they will realize how super our technology is, what kind of applications are being built within DeFi ecosystem, like Arjun mentioned, the entire infrastructure, layer 0, layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, all these things are being built. And when people realize, apart from low transaction fee, low cost, there are such amazing things happening within the DeFi ecosystem. Definitely, more and more institutional investors will come into the crypto ecosystem or DeFi ecosystem. So I want to give a couple of examples also. Back in 2020, we saw that BitGo launched the Prime trading, right? And as of today, there are more than 300 institutional clients that are using BitGo services, right? And SEC, I think in 2021 itself, they approved a very first and the last so far investment product from Arca, which is a cryptocurrency token related project to enter into the investment market. And there are three institutions who watch in DeFi because we are talking about traditional world. JP Morgan, they invested $65 million in Consensus, and other investors were MasterCard, UBS. Goldman Sachs, they invested $15 million in Coinmetrics, and later on invested $28 million in Block Diamond. Bank of America, they owns more than 60 blockchain related patents as per their CEO. And the same month when he issued this statement, he joined Paxos Settlement Service, which uses a blockchain network to settle stock trades. Again, a lot of things I've said positively, but there are a lot of challenges as well. First, we need complex infrastructure, which is both secured and compliant. Lending and borrowing is highly inflexible right now, often built around our collateralized loans. So we need to change that. Last topic is bridging users. Bridging users pretty simple, right? How we will have more and more users. I know that we had 100 million users last year. This year it is changed to 200 million users. We are growing 100 million users per 6 months or per year. That's all good. But what we need to do is we need to educate people. Financial literacy is a growing movement amongst the youngsters for sure, but we need to educate all generation, every generation. And this is a good catalyst for DeFi to reach a mainstream level of adoption. There are a few parameters to understand this are. One of the biggest hurdle aside from cost of operating a DeFi protocol is the lack of know-how around safely navigating between wallets, liquidity pools, staking, and other crypto native buzzwords. I have like 16 plus years experience in corporate, right? I have led like a couple of $1 billion firm. But when I was dealing with the traditional investors, none of them have any idea what is DeFi, how DeFi works, what are the applications they are currently available or being built within DeFi or within the crypto ecosystem. So education is very small. That needs to be built. If we are talking about bridge between traditional world or real world and the DeFi, then this has to be done. Problem is intensified as the abstraction increases and the market volatility scares away interested users. Because sometimes we see, like recently, Bitcoin went down from 52 to 42 again. So this volatility is there in stock as well, but people do not realize. So there has to be more example, more education, more events needs to take place to educate not only the institutional investor, but the retailers as well. Last is navigating regulations. Many people, again, are not aware about the regulations, what is happening around the world. Indonesia started giving the crypto licenses. Middle East started giving the crypto licenses. India is talking about giving the licenses and imposing the capital gain tax, which is good because if you are holding the long assets for the longer term, your capital gain tax would be very, very low, right? And there are Salvador, definitely we know Bitcoin, he wants Bitcoin to be treated as a currency if World Bank gives the permission again. But yes, definitely there are many other countries who have already started giving the licenses for the cryptocurrency, storage companies, insurance company, wallets, applications, whatever you want to do within the crypto space. They have already, you comply with the regulation, you get your license, and you can do multiple things. Regulation is happening as and when more regulation comes into place. Definitely, we'll see more users, real users from real world or traditional world will be joining our DeFi sector. And it's not only one's responsibility. It's, I think, all of us responsibility to make sure that we bring the traditional finance into crypto space, and that is our objective at MapleBlock Capital. Being connected to such kind of people from who are really high level of conglomerates in around the world, they definitely want to bring in a lot of money into the crypto space, and we are helping them doing that. And that is what we do at MapleBlock, bringing their money into crypto space and invest into the real passionate founders who knows that what they are building and they are passionate about the thing. Their vision is strong and they are strong headed towards that as well. Thank you guys. Thank you very much.